Good morning and welcome to It Just Means More Football and Coffee. I'm Rob Williams. He is Craig McMichael. We are both driving motor vehicles at this time on real roadways while we talk to you about college football. Craig, good morning. Please tell me you have coffee in your cup.
You know, I had coffee before I dropped the little one off at school. I am actually on my way to a physical in-person meeting to have coffee, so I will have coffee shortly. What about you? Please tell me Maxwell House came through for you.
Maxwell House is steaming out of my coffee cup. I'm curious, if you're headed to a work meeting and you're going to grab coffee, what's your go-to coffee shop order? Brand new coffee shop, never been there before, so you don't know nuances. You got to go generic. What's your order? Go.
It is a large black coffee. If they have a breakfast burrito, I am all about the breakfast burrito. Hopefully they got a little Frank's Red Hot and some sour cream with that as well.
Oh wow!
What about you?
We're really doing it big.
What about you?
I'll go Americano black as well. If I'm feeling a little creamy, then I'm gonna just do a latte, not any flavor in it, but just a regular latte. And of course, in either case, it's always a large because we need the more the better.
Yeah. Do you know why they call it a latte, by the way?
Hit me, please enlighten us this morning.
Because it costs a latte.
Indeed, it does pay. It does pay. It pays to know the local baristas. Sometimes they'll give you their shift drink if you frequent the same spots. So I've been able to catch on at a time or two in my life.
That's because you're a big timer. It's your world. We're all just living in it. But
it's more like I work with a lot of. It's more like I work with a lot of college students who need money, and so they work at the coffee shops.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. What is this taco? They got a Taco Bros Mexican street food. Might have to try that for lunch on the way back. On the way back from this meeting, that looks good. Call an audible if you will.
It's a truck. You're passing a truck. Okay,
no, it's
one more question.
No, it's a shopping center. Go ahead.
One more question before we jump into football things, because we always discuss the weather. Yep. What's going on up in beautiful Big Blue country in Michigan? How's it looking today? I feel like I can see the sun coming in your car.
It is. So what is it? It is 52 degrees. It is a little cloudy. Last night, the lacrosse boys dropped a heartbreaker to the number 2 team in the state. It was a balmy 78 degrees at game time. Absolutely loving it. So we've got beautiful weather here. Beautiful weather.
I'm on the other end of the spectrum. We're on day 3 of thunderstorms and rain. April showers decided to come a little late, and so here they are arriving in May. I went out this morning. I cut my grass on Tuesday. I accidentally left my mower out. I figured that the sprinkling that it got yesterday was good to rinse it off.
Yep.
Then last night we had torrential downpours and storms all night, and it promises of it doing that throughout the day today. So I went out in the rain this morning and got it put back under the deck, covered it up with the tarp, covered in mud, and still made it out of the shower and got my Gamecock champion pullover on just in time to talk to you. So let's turn it to our main course. We have 4 more teams today, Craig. 4 more teams to talk about, getting into the middle tier of the SEC predictions for this upcoming college football season. I've got Texas A&M predicted at 5-7.
Okay.
I've got Kentucky predicted at 5-7. Mm-hmm. I've got Oklahoma at 6-6. And of course, go ahead and call me a homer pick, South Carolina at 7-5. So those are our 4 today, making up the I guess last week would have been tier 4. We're now in tier 3. Texas A&M, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. Your thoughts off the rip with those numbers and those teams and where we stand in tier three.
Well,
any reaction?
So my first thought, I want to start with Big Blue because we have not talked about Kentucky yet. And I want to know, does your prediction for 5 and 7 include the MAC championship? Because we know that Mark Stoops doesn't play anybody outside the MAC in the non-conference.
That it's the Kentucky formula for success. And in a lot of years, it also is helpful to them that Louisville has a way of being really up or really down, and somehow or another they've been fresh enough to clip Louisville even when they've had good seasons, quote unquote. Last year, ACC championship appearance for the Cardinals, but still went down to the Wildcats. So, yeah, the other three are almost always MAC level teams.
Yeah,
and that's just the Kentucky formula, and that's going to get them to 6 and 4. And then have a couple of games there at the end of the year to figure out, are they going to stay at 6 and 6, or are they going to bump up to 8 and 4 or fall somewhere in the middle? That's typically how that Kentucky thing unfolds. You basically have 3 automatic wins. You've got your rivalry game. I can't talk in this specific season because South Carolina's schedule looks similar. But South Carolina routinely has a top 5 difficult schedule in the country, and so it just so happens that it fell that way this particular year. But usually there's
we've talked about that juggernaut that is Old Dominion.
Hey, don't forget about the Zips. We got Akron coming in as well.
Joe Moorhead and the Zips. They got SC circled on that. But no, just talking about Kentucky. I'm interested to see where they go. Liam Cohn came back last year from he was Kentucky's OC a couple years ago, then went back out to LA in the NFL, came back for a year, and they've really never found that mojo that they had found a couple of years ago. I know they dipped into the portal, they got NC State's quarterback, but last year it was just kind of underwhelming. And I'm really kind of curious, what does Kentucky do going forward? You saw them make a move with Calipari in basketball. Sure, he left to go to Arkansas, but I'm going to guess there was a push in his back. And you have to wonder what Big Blue Nation is going to think about Mark Stoops if he's 5 and 7, if he's 6 and 6. Another year, like Stoops has got them back to that mediocrity, but he's not going to that next level. And I guess this is my question for you. What is Mark Stoops as a coach? Because, we heard him for the Florida State job when Norvell got hired. Obviously, Texas A&M wanted him before they had to back out and they had to go to get Elko. But, yes, he's got them back up to respectability, but he hasn't really seemed to be able to beat anybody in the SEC that has a pulse or a winning record. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Mark Stoops.
Well, I think that what transpired with Texas A&M in this past offseason is what has the potential to get sideways for them this year, because I do think that they're relatively happy with peaking at 8 or 9 wins every few years. And so they can cycle up and cycle down. And I don't think that there's going to be as much pushback as it would be at other programs. But the fact that he was on his way out the door, I feel like we've talked about it before.
Yep.
If you're flirting with somebody else and then you come back home, that doesn't always work out well for you, especially if you flirted with somebody else but decided to come back home and then don't get your honeydew list done, then you're really in trouble. So if he wants to be back in their good graces, it needs to land well. My question for you on Kentucky is, they have become the perpetual portal quarterback sweepstakes school. We got 4 seasons. We got 4 seasons of portal quarterbacks in Lexington, because you had Will Levis for 2 years. Then you had Devin Leary last year. Now here we go. Okay. Brock Vandegrift coming straight out of Athens.
Where's he from? Oh, yeah, he was in Athens.
But the question is, here's really the question for me. What's the difference? And we have these 2 teams in this tier, so I'll take them. what's the difference between Vandegrift and Lenora Sellers and Jackson Arnold? Okay, so we have three. So let's
Yep.
look at all three of them. What's the difference between the three of them as it stands here today? Because we've got three teams that are breaking in brand new quarterbacks
Yep.
in the SEC.
Yep.
They're all Vandegrift's a little bit older. The other two are younger guys.
Yep.
But if you look at quarterback rankings, the reason that most people have Sellers in the bottom three slots is just simply, well, we've never seen him, so it's just by default we don't have a frame of reference, so we can't rank him higher. But you got Jackson Arnold at 8 or 9, and granted, he had some spot.
Hey, say that again. We had a technology grant. So it was a glitch. So start again with Sellers. Tell me again what you're saying with Sellers.
Well, it's list season, right? So most of the lists that we've seen, you got Sellers in that 14, 15, 16 slot of quarterback rankings in the SEC, and the rationale is, well, we just haven't seen him. So I can take that. That's fair.
Yep.
If there's no frame of reference, but there's the same frame of reference for Vandegrift and Jackson Arnold. Granted, they were both more highly recruited.
Yep. So was Sellers what was the star rating? Because I know Brock was a 5-star. I know Jackson was a 5-star. What was Sellers coming out?
That's I think your biggest difference. Sellers was a low 4.
Yep. Okay.
And so that's really about all you've got to work with is the star rating coming out of high school. And I guess my we go back and forth on how much, obviously stars matter. How much do stars matter is really the bigger question. And so that's just where I'm kind of at with these three teams. Your thoughts on, I've rambled enough. Let's go back to my original question. Your thoughts on Vandegrift. Is he a difference maker in Lexington this year? Because clearly I don't think so, since I have them at 5 and 7.
I struggle to see it. I feel like there was more smoke than there was fire about him pushing Carson last year. He's a nice player, but at no time did he really seem to really settle into to that spot. And I think it's interesting when you see the fact that it was him, not Gunnar Stockton, that went in the portal after the season. So to me that's a decision made by Kirby and Bobo that maybe Gunner's that guy of the future. So, I'd love to see it. I'm rooting for him. Obviously, like I said, he's a local kid. He had a lot of success playing at the local private school out near Athens there. But I think as a whole, I don't see it as a difference maker. Who did Kentucky get as the offensive coordinator? Do you remember?
It's another NFL guy, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I just, I think it's just trying to figure out, who do they want, who do they want to be? So I don't see it. So what I'm most excited about, I think, is Seth Luttrell. I believe he's the co-OC at Oklahoma. He was brought in from North Texas.
Yeah,
absolutely. Air raid guy, had a lot of success at UNC before going to North Texas. Maybe that's the one I'm most excited about. I know I know Arnold did not do a great job last year in the bowl game, but I think what you're bringing up with Oklahoma there, that is problematic. They had an exodus of their offensive line. I think all 5 of their offensive linemen either graduated or hit the portal, and they have not been able to reinforce. And this is year 3 now for Brett Venerables. And I know our buddy Casey loves him from Clemson, but Dabo may be getting his defensive coordinator back, because if we're 5 and 7, 6 and 6, 7 and 6, it ain't gonna work. But here's the last thing I'll say with Kentucky. Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC is exactly who Kentucky hurts, because instead of 6 or 7 wins, now we're like 5 wins. Now we're 6 wins. We're battling to get to 500. So I think you're pretty much spot on with that prediction.
I mean, let's just look at Oklahoma, because I agree with you. You start off with Temple, Houston, Tulane. I'm going to give them those 3. Then you have Tennessee and Auburn. I don't see them taking out Tennessee at this point. So it's a battle of offenses, and I think that Heupel just has it more established.
Yep.
I'm actually kind of. This should be given
Where's
away.
that Tennessee game at? Where's that Tennessee game at?
Let's have a look. And while I'm looking at it, you can tell that I'm high on Auburn because we haven't talked about them yet, right?
At least one of us is. At least one of us is all I'm gonna say.
It's in Norman. The Tennessee
That
game.
should, you know what, that'll be fun. I bet you that's a night game. That would be fun. But yeah, I you know, like I agree with you. Houston, yeah, Willie Fritz. It's Willie Fritz back to back, old school, new school. I like that, but you know, but I'm gonna chirp Oklahoma because they also have had a pretty soft non-conference schedule. They've given themselves a pretty easy landing in the last couple of years. I know they were supposed to play Georgia last year, and allegedly the conference said they had to cancel that game because there's no return date. But you know,
ridiculous.
I'm just struggling with that. You know, Elko, I think we both kind of like the hire, but it's kind of like I think
it's just year one. It's the same thing as Levy. Elko's just got more firepower, but I just don't see it turning that quickly.
Yeah, I just and this is the thing. I think this is why the 8 teams that we covered, the 4 last week and the 4 this week, are there, is because there's just no pop. There's no pizzazz. There's nothing that they're doing to stand out. And the reason we have this middle tier of 8 teams is they can be anywhere from 5-7 to 9-3, depending on how depending on how that ball bounces. But there hasn't been a whole hell of a lot for us to, you know, to feel confident in it. So, you know, real quick on your Gamecocks there, what is it that brings them back to bowl respectability besides playing the juggernauts in the non-conference?
Well, honestly, that's a big piece of it because you are breaking in a new quarterback, right?
Right.
You're gonna have 2 things that I think are gonna be different this year. One is the defense is a veteran defense, and they've bolstered some positions that were just lacking depth, not necessarily lacking talent, but along the defensive front, you return your top 3 guys on the defensive line that represented almost all of your sacks and tackles for loss last year. And you brought in 3 more guys who can play in that 2 deep. And so now with the development of some younger guys and the transfer portal, they really believe they have 8 or 9 deep along the defensive line that they can rotate. You bring in a guy like Kyle Kennard at defensive end, who led Georgia Tech in sacks last year. It's Georgia Tech, I get it, but you can pluck athletes who can rush the passer off of anybody's 100%. Roster. And you've got a 6-sack guy in JT Gear that was a transfer from Syracuse last year, played all season last year for the Gamecocks with a broken foot. So he's going to be healthy, and we're looking forward to that. And then you have former South Carolina starting defensive end Gilbert Edmond, who went to Florida State last year, saw his playing time diminish, and so he's back with the Gamecocks to help some depth there. And, of course, 5-star, top 15 player in the nation, Dylan Stewart, looks every bit the part. He's going to step in and start at defensive end. So you got veterans at linebacker, you got some good transfers there, and the secondary is as deep as it's ever been. 2 or 3 freshman All-Americans who are now 2 juniors and sophomores, so some experience happening back there, and we've kind of bolstered that section. So defense looks to be improved, taking a step forward. If they can be a top 50 defense in the country, this is definitely a 7-5 football team. The other thing that I would like to point out is the difference in offensive scheme that we're going to see coming out of Columbia this year. Lenore Sellers is 6'3" and 240 pounds, which is almost identical to the measurables of KJ Jefferson. But the difference is he's faster than KJ Jefferson, and he's a more accurate passer by all accounts that we've been able to see so far than KJ Jefferson. And so you've got Dowell Loggins, who was at Arkansas with Jefferson. You've now got Rocket Sanders, who was the running mate with Jefferson. And so you're going to see some of those elements coming into the offense this year. And lastly, you bring back Sean Elliott from Georgia State as.
Why do you got to do this to me? Why do you got to
The
do this
most
to me?
important, you got it, Dale. You're fine. The most important thing about Elliott coming back is that during the run with Spurrier, Spurrier called the offensive, the passing plays, and
Yep.
Elliott was the run game coordinator, and he put in the entire running scheme. So you think Connor Shaw and Marcus Lattimore or Stephen Garcia or Mike Davis, these guys who were able to be really productive on inside zone type of stuff where you can move the quarterback and he can get you yards, whether it's a quick 4 around the edge or whether he can take off and go for 75 and touchdown. Sean Elliott is back with the title of run game coordinator. And so those elements are coming back with the biggest quarterback to ever wear garnet and black. And that just being big does not mean that he's not an athlete and he can't throw the ball. So excited to see what happens on that side of the ball as well. I'm not going to get overly optimistic and blow up the win column, but I think it really teeters between 5-7 and 7-5. And so I'm going to lean optimistic and show my heart a little bit in this and give them the nod. I think ultimately they just need to get back to the postseason at 6-6.
All right. So last word to wrap this up. I love the passion. I love the fuel. I'm going to miss seeing the garnet and black. And we're hanging out this season with the Dogs. Maybe we can meet in Atlanta. We'll see what happens. But anyway,
one of these years.
Yeah. What last word? Is Venerables done? Does Joe Castellone pull the plug this year?
I don't think so because you're coming into a new conference. I think that's going to give him the cushion that he needs. I think that he's got 1 year. The question for me about Venables is going to be the defense because that's what he's there to do, right?
Hey, listen, he fired Ted Roof. Ted Roof is gone. That was the problem. It was Ted Roof. Listen, all I got to tell you, ready? You're ready for the receipt, Dion? Big Game Bob in 2025 makes his return to Norman.
That would be insane, but it would definitely move the needle, and I think Oklahoma fans would be excited to see him back. So we'll see what happens. I actually like Venables, even though I sit in garnet and black decked out today because that's what my closet looks like, especially when it's raining. And knowing his past, I should probably not like him because he's a Clemson. He's won a lot of rings over there, and kind of even though he really got his big start in Norman, and he took off with Dabo. So one thing I will say, if he ends up back in Clemson, maybe he can talk Dabo into using the portal, and they won't fall into the abyss.
My gosh. So yeah, so as we move to the last word, as we both have to go to work here in a few minutes. This week we've had a couple of SEC coaches. We've had Dabo, we've had Boise State talk a little bit about, oh, I'm not paying these guys, and the NIL is ruining the game. So I will be having a piece on that this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Brian Kelly, Hugh Freeze, stop it. You are grown-ass men. You are getting paid millions and millions of dollars. Don't be greedy. And here's the deal. BK, if you're going to dance and you're going to go down to the bayou and you want to stay a part of the family, you are going to have to make sure that those boys get paid because Daniels is not going to be there to bail your ass out this year.
Well, I'm really interested. LSU will be interesting. There's a nice teaser for us coming back next week as we get into Tier 2. Got some.
We haven't gone to the Bayou yet this year. We've gone 13 episodes. We have not touched the Bayou.
I will spoil it. We're headed there next week.
Okay, good. What about you? What do you got on last word? Anything coming up, right? I know you just put something out this week.
So got something on Sellers, which I just kind of previewed a little bit in my monologue there on the Gamecocks. But we're going to look into just really what makes him somebody that South Carolina fans can have confidence in, even though he's a young guy. Look at what's happening behind the rec specs, between the ears there. I think there's something special on top of just the physical attributes. And so, he's a redshirt freshman. You're going to have your moments. You're going to have your ups and downs. But I think if you can have a few more ups than you have downs, make it back to bowl territory and set yourself up well for the future.
You know, Detroit Catholic Central back in the 99-2000 season had a flex tight end, defensive end, linebacker hybrid who wore a pair of rec specs. He was 6'4", 180 pounds, a little undersized, but he got after it. So always have a soft spot in my heart for anybody rocking the rec specs. You got any other last word, little hot debate for us before we get out of here?
Well, you know, I guess my question is, Craig.
Yep.
On this rainy South Carolina day, do I try to do something productive at the house, or do I just kick it and watch a movie? That's really my hot last word debate today.
Netflix and chill.
We'll see what happens. Feels like I'm going to be installing ceiling fans. That's really what it feels a little more like what's on my docket for today, but I'm going to try to hit Netflix. We'll see what happens.
Make sure that power's off. Make sure that power is off. Do not touch that live wire.
It is off, and that's why I've got to get it done today because it's connected to the guest bath and it's black in there. Hey, if you haven't watched the roast of Tom Brady, they took some shots. It's not for the faint of heart and those who don't want to watch something a little vulgar at times. But I laughed.
I would never do anything that vulgar. My goodness.
Hey, it's 3 hours though, so just brace yourself. You're gonna need some time if you're gonna sit down and watch it.
That's a long time. So anyway, I hope you have fun, my friend. Hey, by the way, we finished this episode. We were both parked when we were looking at the camera. We were both parked, so we were safe. We were not looking at the camera while we were driving. There were no vehicular laws broken.
We made it. You guys have a great week. We'll be back next week with It Just Means More Football and Coffee. I am Rob Williams. He's Craig McMichael. We'll see you on the flip side.
Have a good one, everybody. Hey, fist bump. We got it. Hang on, I gotta take a picture. Oh, it didn't work.
You froze.
Yeah, I know. Hang on. Let's see. You ready?
Yeah.
How the hell you take a picture? Oh, there we go. I got it.